Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley, and you are watching AMBY.
Hey everyone, it's Alicia from AMBY, and I'm so excited to be sitting here once again with the hardcore legend, Mick Foley. Hello.
Well, thank you, Alicia. It's nice to be here, right here in Greektown, right? And we're going to be doing an event here with Greektown Events here in Toronto, Ontario, and it's a pleasure to talk to you again.
You're going to be taking the GM role here tonight at Greektown in Toronto, a role that you are fairly familiar with.
Yeah, that's right. Kind of like a salve on that open wound from being fired on national, international, worldwide television by Stephanie McMahon. But in the interim period, I've had my hip replaced, my knee replaced, getting around pretty good these days.
So it feels good to be back in the GM seat?
Yeah, so thank you, Stephanie. Otherwise, I'd still be limping, and as we know, limping ain't easy. Okay. So, but it will be nice to be back in the GM seat for sure.
Something else that's coming up that we must discuss is the 20 Years of Hell tour, which is super exciting as it is the 20th anniversary of the iconic Hell in a Cell match with The Undertaker. So does it feel like 20 years has gone by since that legendary match took place?
In some ways, it feels like it was a blink of an eye because I'm always reminded by it. And part of the, kind of the story and the arc, that I hope to take viewers or audience members on is the idea that there was, for many years, a time when I ran from that match, like the idea of just being like tormented by it, like it was the only thing I'd ever done. And then you come to embrace it and realize that, wow, people who weren't even born when that match was took place are somehow touched by it, or at the very least entertained by it. And I feel like I saw something on a website that said, 20 years of, heck, as we say in the Foley house. Mick will be talking about his memories in every town that he goes to, and it's like, no, that's part of it. Like, I'll recall some things.
That's a lot of memories.
There's a lot of memories, but it won't be like, hey, I'm going to do an entire show based around my memories from Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah,
like, it's the Hell in a Cell anniversary, and so I'm going to attempt to take people on a real, like emotional roller coaster ride back in time, and kind of take them through that night, and the proceedings that night, kind of the aftermath and the legacy. And so I think, I'm hoping it'll be the best show I've done. I'm certainly writing it with the intention that it will be.
Well, the original tagline for the show was that it's going to be 20 years, 20 cities, and a lot of stories. So was it difficult for you to kind of narrow down which aspects you wanted to talk about?
No, because it's nice that it's always a work in progress. And so, like, when we debut April 11th in Rosemont, Illinois, going to Washington, D.C., and that should be really exciting because it's the first night and it's raw, and the energy's great. But literally every night I think about, how can I make this better? What needs to go? What should I add? And then you get to a point where hopefully the show is really running smoothly. And every night we do a Q&A, and so there is always the potential for disaster, which I like, because every night when you went out in the ring, there was a potential
scenario.
Things could fall apart. And so it's my goal, not only to answer questions, but to entertain as well. And sometimes you get asked a question that you hadn't even thought of, and it leads to a story you may tell at a future time where you go, wow, I've got, there was a question, for example, in Scotland about the Buried Alive match I had with The Undertaker in 1996. And I answered it. It was fairly entertaining. And when I went back after that show, I was like, I know there's a story there. And I started working on that, and then it became a highlight of that tour later on.
Okay. So little things just spark that easy, and then you can just run with them.
Yeah. But I've got all these ideas of where I want to take people. And like I said, when I get out there, it'll be obvious to me which stories are working, which ones are not. There was an instance where I was trying to find, this sounds really, really ridiculous and artsy, but I had an adjective, right? And it wasn't working. I was talking about the elbow drop I did, and how, like, without further explanation, an elbow drop seems rather benign, weak, borderline. And then I used a word, and I thought it was going to get reaction. Every night it was like, it's not the right word. It's not the right word. And one night, and this is no disrespect to the man I'm talking about, but it does connect with audience, I said, weak, benign, borderline Hogan-esque. And then here come the laughs.
Okay.
And then I turned and I went, he's not here tonight, is he? Here come more laughs. Then I turned and looked at the crowd and went, sorry, brother. And I was like, ah, man, I went from like zero,
gold.
a couple chuckles to like 3, levels of laughter. And I was like, all right. Not that I'm always looking for laughs, but yeah, they're nice.
You know
to
when
get
you've got
some.
something there.
Yeah.
Well, I interviewed Jake the Snake about a year back, and
Yes.
he said the reason that he started to do his tour was because he came out to one of yours. He saw it, and this is a quote from him. He saw yours, but he thought that he could do it a little bit better. So what are your thoughts on that statement?
Well, I'm flattered that I inspired him in that way. And hey, if other people think they can do it better, I probably does it differently, a lot differently.
A lot differently.
Jake works a lot darker than I do. My show, even when I'm talking about serious stuff, has a light air to it. And I remember Jake asking me, he's like, brother, do you think I could do a couple minutes? And he was nervous. I'd never seen Jake nervous in my life. But I'm flattered that he did it. I understand a bunch of guys are giving it a try because everybody has stories. The question is whether they're willing to put the time in and work on them. And the crowd, honestly, for the most part, they love the Q&A. I just think that a crowd deserves some hard work put into the show. That there's real. I don't know. That's just my personal feeling. Is like I want to go up there and I want to give a performance and then do the Q&A.
Well, just speaking to cool stories, I wanted to bring up Robot Wars with you because I heard, I'm not sure if this is true, but I heard that originally they wanted to kind of put you in this leatherish outfit, and then you were like, nah, the fans want the flannel.
They made me a beautiful custom-made
So it's true.
leather duster, leather pants. Like I believe there was a button-down leather shirt, and they were looking for something futuristic, and I was like, I'm thinking, I don't think I said the fans expect it.
Okay.
I sold them an idea that I thought the show needed a guy in flannel and sweatpants, but the leather duster did not go to waste. When I was going to take my daughter and a couple of her friends to see Ashley Simpson.
Oh, okay. Was that a while ago?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I was about to
years
say.
ago. And I can assure you, there was no wait at the men's room. I was like the only dude in the place. But it was fascinating just to watch people enjoying themselves. And I come out, and I think, and I'm going to say, okay, Noelle, I'm ready. And I come down with the leather duster, the leather pants, a pair of cowboy boots. And I hadn't worn cowboy boots in 10 years, and no shirt on. And,
Oh my
and I sit
gosh.
down, I was like, okay, you ready? And I'm waiting for her to go, Dad, you can't go out there like that. You look ridiculous. She's like, yeah, let's go. I was like,
She was just cool with
they're
it.
like, what do you think of the outfit? She goes, I think you look good. I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
I'm waiting for the reactions. That's what we all want, reactions. And so I had to go, all right, actually, I'm going to go upstairs. And well, okay, but I think you look Dad in a leather duster and no shirt and leather
Hey, at least
pants.
you know she was cool with it.
Yeah,
That's
she
pretty
was cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, as of right now, it's such a great time to be a wrestling fan as
And I
WrestleMania.
must say,
go
can
for
I
it.
just, and you put a lot of work into your questions, right? I like that. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It means a lot coming from you.
Yeah, I can see it. These are good questions too.
Thank you.
The secret, I think, of asking good questions is to ask people things they haven't been asked about, over and over, and then ask things that everyone has something they want to talk about. And I don't care how big a star you are, someone is. If you find that thing, you've got a friend.
Another story that you decided to share with everybody was your recent experience with the Young Bucks and just the entire Bullet Club phase. I love the Bullet Club, especially the Bucks boys. But you were recently on Being the Elite, and Mr. Marty Scurll was trying to convince you to join the Villain Club, and it was super awesome to watch you two connect. Did he ever end up giving you a Villain t-shirt?
No, he didn't.
He didn't?
Marty, what's the deal, man?
What's the
and
deal?
I got to tell you, I'm not getting rid of my Jewel shirt, all right?
Oh, 'cause
I wanna make it
you
clear to
offered
Jewel.
that up.
Yeah, no, in real life, I would not part with the Jewel shirt, okay? Yeah, my wife, Colette, and my daughter Noelle and I went to see Jewel, and she just, she was awesome. And I'd written a post about how much the lines of one of the songs, reached out to me. In the end, only kindness matters. And so we had a nice conversation about that song and about her career and things that touched me and the ways that I related to her book in a way that I didn't previously think. I liked, she's got a great voice. I like Jewel. I would once in a while watch the the dance video she did. I thought that was awesome. Gotta admit, I would watch that every few years. I'd be like, hey, I'd like to see that video
I want to
again.
check that out again.
Yeah. But she was so down to earth, and the fact that when she thought it looked like her career was going nowhere, her album was floundering, and that of all people, Bob Dylan watched her show And she'd been told, Dylan won't watch her show. He won't be, he won't even be there. He will not. You will probably not talk to Dylan. And then he wanted to see her, and he wanted to talk. He asked her about songs and songwriting, and she's telling me the stories like Bob Dylan. He's asking me about my take on songwriting, and it really touched me because I've had moments early in my career where things seemed like they weren't going anywhere, and then there'd be that one guy. In my case, I'm thinking specifically Robert Fuller in '88. Telling me, I won't even try to do Robert's voice. I'll sound ridiculous. Jacko, I think you're going to make it in this business, boy. And, so that's a long way of saying I'm not giving you
that shirt's not
my
going
jewel
anywhere.
shirt, but I still expect my Villain Club shirt. I've met Marty before, so I was aware of how, on some level, how big, the thing they had going. But until that show,
experiencing it all,
seeing them, just seeing the vast numbers, like hundreds of people with the shirts. And I was telling my agent today, I was like, it wasn't like they didn't they liked me. It wasn't like they were anti. I think a lot of them, from what I read, because I did put out I thought it was an article I put some time into, and the guys appreciated it. Nick and Matt and Marty, they appreciated the time I put into it. But in the comments section, the thing I kept seeing over and over was they made it fun again. That the feeling was there were a lot of people who got out of the habit of watching wrestling, and for them, the fact that there was something else out there.
I've heard that many times when people talk about that.
And that was what I would always hear. My daughter and son would go to the ROH shows, and they'd always tell me that the Bucks said hello, and they really liked their energy. They're good guys, and I couldn't be happier for them. And I know this is not something I'm supposed to be saying as a WWE guy, but I love the idea that there are other places, for people to make a good living.
Yeah. And
there are people who are really content and happy, and that it's a kind of a big tent in our world of pro wrestling, and that there's a place for a lot of us in that. Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought up Jewel there, because it's a perfect transition into another musical realm that I wanted to touch on, which was the fact that we saw you on Holy Foley singing with Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, which was a phenomenal thing to watch. Is singing something you have wanted to dabble into ever?
Here's a behind the scenes look. It's reality TV. You can tweak reality a little bit. And when I first sang, Dee went, okay, we got a problem here. So let's say, goes, you're not actually that bad. So we had to do it again where the pianist played in a different key. And then when I did my my rendition of Come All You Faithful, I knew Dee had his own version, so I know he's going to come in with his own version. I was like, I know the original. I know Dee's. Like, how can I sing this in a different way? And so...
That's where it
all I
came
could
from.
do to not crack up laughing on that, come ye, joyful, triumphant.
Because you really did William Shatner it a little bit. You really did.
And when I said the word Bethlehem, I mean, I just about cracked up laughing. But Dee's a good friend of mine. I have sung with Nora Jones, which was like a dream. Nora and Sasha Dobson and Catherine Popper, were kind enough to allow me on 2 different occasions to sing Must Be Santa with them. Yeah, so I do enjoy it. I don't pretend to be good at it, but I do enjoy it. And there's a lesson to be learned there, which is, and I learned this in wrestling, and it goes to something I said in the recent book about, the Dirty Harry Callahan line, a man's got to know his limitations, is a valuable life lesson, because I did pretty well working within my limitations.
Yeah.
And so when I was asked by Catherine Popper to learn a song, I came forward with Must Be Santa, because the vocal range was like this, 100% character. It's got a beard that's long and white. You can't mess that up, You just have to remember the words.
I love hearing the behind the scenes of things, because even for me watching wrestling, you have some of my all-time favorite segments from whether it's This Is Your Life with The Rock or when Mr. Socko and yourself decided to visit Vince McMahon in the hospital. So is it really hard for you, or was it keeping back all the laughter when filming those segments?
On that day we visited Mr. McMahon in the hospital. Steve came in later with the famous bedpan incident, but we were watching Mr. McMahon, the 2 of us, and some of the stuff that didn't even make the air. It was just Vince as the ultimate cranky patient. Nurse, I asked for apple juice, This is grape juice. And just, trying not to laugh. And on that instance, you know, I thought the thing with your bull and the sock was good.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was great. I didn't
Okay.
think it was going to be memorable. And so when Steve saw me the next day, he's like, "Kid, man, that was just great." And I thought he was going to do what he did to me on an airplane one time, where he was putting over my match with Psycho Sid.
So you take it all back.
And no, yeah, and then he took it all
Oh,
back.
that's
And
crushing.
oh man, it crushed me. So I thought he was getting ready
Doing
to go
that
there.
again.
So I wasn't gonna go all out, and I kept waiting for that, you know, laugh of his, and it never came. He was like, "Oh, kid, I'm telling you, that was some of the funniest blank stuff I've ever seen in my life." And it wasn't until, you know, an hour before showtime when Vince Russo came over. He's like, "Bro, you got the sock?" I was like, I don't know. It's a used sock that I drew on, you know. I said, "Why?" He goes, "They're chanting for him. They got names for him." And so it is, I mean, the lesson there is you don't know unless you
don't know what's
try.
gonna stick.
Because, you know, for every great success, you know, that I've had, there's been a number of failures, you know, but people are kind of forgiving of the failures. And I think they appreciate you going out there and taking your swings, so to speak.
Absolutely love
Yeah,
that. It's
yeah.
that's just a lesson in life, really. Just take chances. You never know where it's
right.
going to take you.
That's what Kurt Angle said, you know, at his Hall of Fame acceptance speech, you know, that some of the stuff that he was best known for was ridiculous. And you never know unless you try. And some of that stuff turned out to be very, very memorable.
Right away, I just thought of the milk truck.
Yeah,
Like,
milk truck.
instantly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's wrap things up. I do want to bring it back to the fans. Is there anything you want to leave with everybody viewing?
Oh, you know, why don't I get in the blatant self-promotional plug, and then
Go
we'll come
for
up
it.
with hey, just all the dates. There's 20 of them in the U.S., or 18 in the U.S., 2 in Western Canada, nothing in Ontario. Sorry, Alicia. And then we go to Australia for 5 or 6 shows, and they can check all that out on realmickfoley.com. And why don't you ask me, do you have any last questions? Maybe I can bring it home with
Ooh,
something.
a last
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
I'm trying to think here. On the spot, okay. You mentioned before how there were some segments that go over, which is fantastic, and some that don't
Yes.
so much. What's one that didn't that you wish really did?
All right, you know, here's an example. This is with Kurt Angle, and it's going to it's probably strike people as very distasteful, and people see why it didn't get over. I wanted to make a 30-something reference, and Mr. McMahon didn't think it would get over, and I went, "Well, you let me try." He goes, "I'm going to give you a little room here, but for the record, I don't think it's going to work." And I went out there and I was trying to tell, like, the guys, they had to pull together, and I was like, it's like that episode where, you know, Paige and Hope found out that one of the characters had, and I look, and then Kurt Angle goes, "Cervical cancer?" And I went, "Cervical cancer." And not that there's anything funny about cervical cancer at all, but
No.
the idea that Kurt Angle, the nerd,
Yep.
knew the storyline, the 30-something, and the crowd, freaking crickets out there. Yeah, so I come back and 30-something, cervical cancer, you know, so... but I had I had that latitude to try different things, and so certainly that was a swing and a giant miss. But you know,
You
every
tried.
once in a while I would connect big time, you know, and those times make it worth it, definitely.
I just want to say thank you so much for joining me again. It's
You're
an
welcome,
absolute
Alicia. Yeah,
pleasure.
yeah. And people tell you look like my daughter Noelle
All the time.
and Kathy Kelly.
All the time. They
All
say
right.
it's a mix of the two, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
I like that. Okay. Well, what a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
And have a nice day.
Have a nice day.